Tiermas is an old medieval town in the Aragonese pre-Pyrenees, located on the right bank of the Aragón River at the western end of the depression known as La Canal de Berdún, next to the Yesa reservoir bordering Escó to the east and with Yesa, Navarra to the west. Tiermas is considered one of the routes of the Camino Santiago. Today it is recognized as a BIC population, assets of cultural interest, and is also part of the first European Cultural Itinerary named by the European Union in 1987 and is considered a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1993. Its location is unbeatable, surrounded by a bucolic and wonderful landscape. The construction in the mid-20th century, specifically in the early 1960s, of the dam to regulate the waters of the aforementioned Aragón River provided hydrological benefits for the Cinco Villas region and the irrigation of the Bardines area. But in exchange, it generated the total practice of depopulation of the Alta Zaragoza region, as all the inhabitants of the Villa de Tiermas, which was its capital, had to emigrate due to expropriations, as well as those of Escó and Ruesta, which at the beginning of century they numbered about 1,500 people. The CHE Ebro Hydrographic Confederation carried out the expropriations in the case of Tiermas between 1929 and ended in 1962, in Ruesta in 1965, and in 1966 in Escó. Since then, the entire region of Alta Zaragoza was depopulated, leaving all the towns that depended on the town of Tiermas in ruins. Only a few towns remained, such as Fuís and Artierda, that were not affected by the expropriations of this public work. But that could be affected in the immediate future by the regrowth of the reservoir, although their project contemplates the possibility of applying compensation through a plan of territorial restitution. Due to the disappearance of Tiermas as the head of the region, the towns of Mianos and Salvatierra de Esca belong to Zaragoza, but have become part of the Huesca region of Jassitania. However, the history of Tiermas had moments of greater splendor, perhaps because it was one of the oldest founded towns in the entire region. Its Roman origin is the ancient thermae of the Caesar Augustano legal convent, which has been imprinted in the place name, which refers to the old thermal facilities operated practically until their disappearance in 1960 after the construction of the reservoir. Flooded by the waters, it has found the circular pool and other remains built by the Romans, as well as the buildings that must have been built since 1819 when the spa became private property. Pasquale Madaz says that its waters gushed out at a temperature of 33 degrees Reamer in the place known as Cerro Petrolón, and they did so through two sources, the Chorro, previously known as the Teja, and the Ripa. It is worth highlighting also that the spa achieved an important reputation, since it was visited by the Infanta Isabel, called La Chada, sister of Alfonso, with music and gramophone rooms, billiards, reading room, desk, garage, dining room, even a chapel. The thermal tourism offer was completed with an old fonda that had 67 rooms. At the beginning of the 20th century, the spa received a large influx of tourism, especially in the summer. A new historical phase would begin for Tiermas during the Middle Ages after its refoundation in 1201 by King Pedro II, who moved its inhabitants to the top of a hill, where the town that remains today was built, granting them important privileges and freedoms. Since then, its strategic role in the defense of the Aragonese border was very important. Perhaps that is why it was taken by the King of Navarre in 1363 and by the Bastard of Tardes in 1398. It is also worth highlighting San Varela, who was a native of Tiermas, who according to tradition lived at the end of the 9th century and the beginning of the 10th century, being abbot of the monastery of Lair, and who according to his own legend, remained asleep for 300 years after getting lost in the forest. His relics are kept in the Cathedral of Pamplona. The layout of the current town of Tiermas shows its medieval origins, showing a rectangular perimeter, although somewhat irregular, which was originally completely walled, as Madaz came to see during the 19th century. Today, only one access door remains in the northwest corner, open in a pointed arch and known as the Witch's Portal, and the remains of a tower that must have been the hub of the wall. The poorly lit streets, generally wide and unpaved, are arranged very irregularly, the two most important being that of the church and the center, which converge in the fountain or church square, the center of the population. The parish church of San Miguel is located in the fountain or church square. Built in ashlar and sandstone ashlar, its floor plan draws a Latin cross with a single nave, divided into 5 sections that are separated by semicircular transverse arches. The bells were transferred to the Diocesan Museum of Jaca. Originally, this church was built in Gothic style during the 14th century. During the 18th century, an important Baroque renovation was carried out that affected almost the entire building, increasing the walls and height, replacing the vaults, expanding the transept and the main chapel, and raising the tower. All the altarpieces, furniture, and artistic works that this church kept were transferred to other churches. The archive that guarded the parish books is now in the parish of Seguiers.
Si el contenido te ha gustado, suscríbete y dale un like, así me ayudas a crecer. Muchas gracias.